Hey, what's going on, guys? It is me, TheMathewFlames. For the one who subscribed to me, didn't expect to see my face all of a sudden. But for the one who doesn't, I'm just a fellow animator who just like to make some many stuff because I just feel like, making some crazy stuff. Finish the video, man! And I know why you're here. You just want to know how I made these animations and want to know all for the details of how I made these animations in the behind scenes. Especially when I get comments like,
"Hey, how you do that? Why you do that? Why do you have to make this? I don't understand."
Yeah, I don't understand either.
And also, to answer your question, yes, this is made in Blender. Although I am stuck with 4.0.2 because I'm an outdated loser. And I didn't bother to upgrade it, so I just kinda stuck with it. But I managed to make some pretty cool stuff while sticking with the Eevee engine, which is basically a simple graphics like for video game, whatever. And compared to Cycles, which is basically focused on realism. And whenever I activate it, my computer goes. Now it's safe to say that even though my computer doesn't handle like Avengers endgame graphics, I can still figure out a way how to make some cool stuff, so limitation doesn't stop me. So without further ado, let's go! Back around in April 2024, they announced Reeves being cast as Shadow the Hedgehog, and then let me tell you, everyone went bonkers! And then one guy's going like, "Oh my god, it's real! Oh!" Yeah, it really got me interested because think about this. In this game, Shadow the Hedgehog has guns, and John Wick has a gun too. So I was like, perfect. So I got to work. First, I took some inspiration from John Wick comic book that I found in the library back in high school, and I thought this can be a good way to experience some art style in 3D. Wish it became a #1 challenge to achieve, but I have plenty of strategy to achieve it. Now first, head over to a shading tab and open up a new material with a color ramp that is set like a constant, to give that 2D effect to it. Then I stop upon this page that has a painting shader that I thought is pretty cool for me to use it, and check it out. It's free! And you know what that means? I use this texture to every shader that I use for every single video, and I mean at this point I have to make my own shader pretty soon because I can't rely on this shader. But hey, all thanks to this guy. It's pretty cool. Now added the image of the texture to it and added a rolling texture to make that shader a little more rough and harsh. Now there's a light that you see on the character, which is actually a fake light, if you didn't know. Now first you have to have that empty object so you can use the texture coordinates to detect that thing. Then add the geometry and connect that normal to the vector math node and instead of that dot product. And then added a little color ramp so now you can move around, fake the lights, you can put it in the skies. And one final touch is add a rolling texture, to create that, cool little effect. You want to have another light? Just basically duplicate the whole thing, connect to the mix code, have the extra empty options so you can move around as well. Now let's just cramp all that thing and there we go, you got a shader. Now let's move on to the outline. So first you have to create a stroke object and go to the modifier, select the line art, and then you can select the collection, layers, and material. And there we go, it's complete. So now you can go monkey mode on that shader. I recommend adding a new collection that's dedicated to outline, so that way some object that has an outline while others doesn't have one because it's a different collection. And also, to give that one model with different materials, go to edit mode, select any geometry, and then make sure you have 2 materials. So pick one material, I click assign button, and there we go, you can have 2 materials. So that's how I managed to make this model, which I'm very proud of how it looks because I thought it's very accurate to the comic book that I'm trying to replicate. Well, of course, we're not finished yet because we have to jump to the very fun part, my favorite part, is to make them move. Now this system is called rigging, which can be very complex if you add so many options, make it advanced so it helps you, rig the character much more better. This is my first attempt. Yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm just straight up casually just adding bones, make it connect and make them move. That it looks like a freaking Stretch Armstrong if you stretch it so long. It looks very weird. But hey, I mean, you can do something like this. Now you may notice the animation is a lot more snappier and it's stuck into the camera if you look closely. So by doing that, just have this character selected, go to the modifier, click Carbon Transform and select that. to the camera so it can lock to the camera and stick with it. So in the pose mode, just move the bones to the angle that the camera can see the character. For just a regular object, you can't really move it and rotate it, so to fix that, I'll go to before origin of 4, and now you can actually move the character. Just be aware that the rotation could be very weird. I have a little smooth animation that I created, so to make it snappier, go select all the keyframes and then right click and click insert keyframes, and you have to do it by 2 frames and it's gonna take you a bit. So now change the interpolation to constant and there we go, you got a snappier animation. Okay, kind of looks weird in some parts, so let's just fix that. Select the one that has a very speedy motion and then change it to be seer, and there we go, now you get a much more smoother animation. Since the character is locked to the camera, you can notice how their character is actually, stuck on the screen to make that 2D feel. The recipe line behind the shadow is actually a separate model that's shaped like a cylinder. So I added Parody texture, some color ramp, and some transparent effect. And to make the lines, moves, I had to put like hashtag frame any number, so that way, it creates that speed line effect into it. You'll make it move. Oh yeah, for that little broken window shard, I just used Parody texture to make that shine a little more nice. Yeah, I got some comment that have been asking me, oh, how do you make 2D effects? Oh, how do you make spear frame and stuff like that? I actually use a different software called OpenTunes that focus on 2D animation, 2D drawing, stuff like that. And this is not sponsorship or whatever, but hey, this software is freaking free, so yeah, it's free compared to Adobe animation that is not free. So yeah, that's why I use this program instead. In addition, I also use this to make a lip syncing, which is I can't even figure out how to do in 3D. So yeah, this software really gives me some method to spice up that animation a little bit. Did I forget to remind you that it crashes sometimes? Yeah, this thing keep happening so many times, and oh, believe me, I was not having it on this stupid bullcrap. So I'm just minding my own business, keep making mention, and this thing keep crashing, happening so many freaking times. But then I peacefully rendered the animation without any problems. Good time, am I right? Yeah, at this point, as an animator, you have to get really used to it of, having your software crash because, it's gonna happen a lot of time, like, trust me. It's basically happened by nature the moment when you become a nerd for computers. So, expect the pain, disrupt your work just like how you get disrupted by Spy in TF2. Alright, let's move on to the video editing. This part that has a big ol' impact in the background contains different layers that I rendered separately. Under the film section, hit the transparent button to make the background transparent, change it to RGBA and make sure it's PNG. So now you can hit the render animation and wait for a little bit so you can have like a whole collection of PNGs. In OpenTunes, I created a huge text so I can put it in the background, in the video editor software. So I just put like a different layers. I'll have a shadow PNG, frame by frame, or just change the color, and also I'll put some filters so I can make it look nicer. Oh yeah, this part, which is definitely not inspired by a certain movie. This one is very complicated because there's so many steps, so many parts, it's very technical to deal with. In the shader, I added some Parody texture, as always. I added a transparent effect to give it a background, I add some colors, and there's different layers that I also add to give some depth to it and to make it look nicer, basically. Since this shader can react to light, I use the light source so I can customize the shape to whatever I want. Now implement all those renders to OpenTunes and use a drawing so later I can chroma key that out. In the chroma key, just give it a gray area and there we go. And also I had to do this every single frame, so it took me a while. Now this is the video that I want to make as a comeback after waiting for and I did it, and a lot of people loved it. I posted it on Twitter and a lot of people loved it. And then what the hell, I'm in the article? Yeah, apparently I'm in the article. That's just pretty cool. Hey, I appreciate it. You basically shocked me when the first time I saw you, like holy crap. Also, I want to give an honorable mention of people using my video in a different way.
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
¿Dónde está la maldita cuarta Chaos Emerald?
Pero si tengo monedas de cripto.
Un pendejo. Yeah, huge shout out to all those people because wow, I managed to make an impact for those people and I'm grateful for all these supports. And I'm eager to make more of these 3D animation because I have a great time making those videos. Also, this thing, I just made in Microsoft Paint. What, do you expect me to make a whole Bob Ross tutorial how to make this thing?
We all know why I made this video.
Like, come on, he's in the Mario movie, he's in the Borderlands movie, he's in the Kung Fu Panda, a Jumanji, and this. Like, you can't even go to sleep and not think about Jack Black. Despite the point, well, this video is not really that complicated. Like, it doesn't really have a lot of stuff that I can cover, so it won't take that long to even cover because it's just a video that just kind of mock Hollywood for the Jack Black invasion of the movies. So without further ado, let me show you how the character is made. And what the hell? Oh god!
Oh, it's me, a Scallywag. What you doing, little rascal?
Hey Scallywag, I'm just doing the behind the scenes of my animations.
Oh, behind off the scene, I see. Hey, don't forget to mention that you misspelled Dopsy on the Game of Movie as well.
Okay, that was a mistake, damn it!
Oh, that's hilarious.
And besides, that ain't even the topic of the video, pal!
Yeah, because you're too scared to point that out, so quit arguing, especially when you argue about losing to players Counter-Strike. You're like, stop killing me! Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, first off, you literally just keep hiding around my base so you can do little surprise attack like some kind of like try-hard or something. And second of all, you also argue that not a lot of people scan your Kyoko in one of my remixes.
Nah, I don't know what you're talking about. You're speaking nonsense. Nonsense! Speaking of which, I pop out on the TV with a QR for anybody to scan. I recommend you're doing it.
Or else I'll find you house and force you to do it.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, anyway, so I made this model that is based on Tenacious D video games, and then I used the Lucky painting shader as usual. But don't worry guys, I figured out how to make my own painting shader so I can show you how it works. Now, to make that painting shader, here's a little section that has a bump right next to the whole thing to react to it a little more differently. Next, here's a little group that has two textures, the one with the rolling texture and the other one with the repeated lines. And then here's a little group that makes the edges transparent, and then of course a rim line and some transparency effect. Just don't forget in the blend mode, just switch it to alpha blend so you can obtain that transparent effect. For the facial expression, I use a huge amount of face keys, for the mouth, for the beard, and for the eyes, and also the eyebrows too, to make it a little more flexible for me to use. By doing that, go to the shape keys, crank the value all the way up to the max, and then now you can able to change the polygon, so now you can change the value of it. To animate it, add a keyframe, move to a different frame, change the value, add a keyframe, and there we go, you have a little animation. Now here's a little fun part. Grease pencil is what I go crazy with the drawings, and basically use this for every single video. To animate it, activate auto keying, draw something, change the frame, and then draw something and you create a little keyframe to animate the drawing. Lastly, you gotta have an armature modifier, create a new bone, pick the armature, and then find the bone that you want to put a drawing on it, and there we go, now you have the drawing that's stuck on the character. Hey guys, check this out.
Oh man, Crash Bandicoot, I need those crystal now, Crash. I need it.
I made a little stop sign assistant that's actually reference to a Sesame Street, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. By the way, you should check out this video, it's pretty lit. I gave myself a little control so I can rotate multiple cubes. So by doing that, you gotta select all the different cubes, hold shift, and put on the empty, so now you can rotate the multiple cubes. I made a little mixing node that has a keyframe so I can able to change the visuals on the octagon, and it contains another image as well. In addition, I also had the image that has a radial gradient, to make that effect combined with the painting texture. Here's a banner that has a wind movement, so by doing that, give it a display modifier, select the empty object so you get able to create that effect, and make sure you have the wood texture to make it happen. And also the last scene, I decided to go a little more interesting with using the open tunes for the 2D animation. Oh, by the way, this guy doesn't have legs because it shouldn't be. There's no treasure chest or pirate, there's nothing. Nada! So yeah, that's about it. I mean, I told you that it's gonna go quickly because there's not a lot of stuff that's happening in this video compared to all my other videos that I'm about to show you. It takes a lot of work to make the effort. So yeah, we could go to the next one right now. Oh yeah, one last thing, I want to show you something.
Hey, you ain't winning this time. Man, you suck.
Okay, it's ridiculous how you can just stand there and keep shooting missiles at me so many times.
Don't get hit, bro.
Yeah, okay.
That is nice of you. Why not just make a Kirby animation out of this?
Yeah, this video is very different because I always thought about making a Kirby animation at one point, especially when these characters are pretty simple to make, which before, it was meant to be uploaded before the Shadow Hedgehog, but instead, well, I'm being stupid, so I decided to make this video instead, and yeah, I just want to get this franchise some spotlight, because why not? Since these characters are pretty simple to make, I gotta figure out how to make them look interesting, give a different texture, make them not look like basic shapes. It's kinda similar to a painting shader, but I kinda modify a little bit by giving it a color ramp and some friendstuff for the effect on the edges. And for fun, I made a concept art of a Kirby face and how I can implement that to a 3D. Now I'm gonna show you how the Kirby eye works, so let me just This model is actually 3D, so I can have an advantage of making different materials, give it different shaders into it. And I use a shape key so that way I can give the eyes more expressive, give me so many options, make it complexity, and use a reference to help me and guide me, to give this much expression to be accurate to the reference. And same thing with the Kirby mouth, give it a shape keys, give it a complexity and, well, be accurate to the reference that I drew for Kirby face. If you look closely to the Meta Knight eyes, you can notice that there's a little texture that is outside of the pupils. And this is actually done inside the blender, so by doing that I have to make like a spear, and then there's like a texture that goes around the circles and some gradients. After rendering, now you have this, which is, I'm not gonna make a joke what it looks like.
It looks like a—
Shut up! Now I made this Meta Knight sword, which is, well, it borrows the same painting shader as usual. What do you expect? But I actually changed it up a little bit by adding a little color ramp into it to make it a little more shiny. And then there's like a little edges that I added, which is basically borrowing the same painting shader, just only applied to that geometry. I'm gonna show you how the mountains work. So by doing that, in the modifier, activate subdivision to give more polygons, and then make sure to have display so it can give out bumps. And by doing that, you have to make sure the texture is on Voronoi. Then has decimate, which is basically lower the polygons and then makes it a little more smoother to make it more natural. Remember, you can change any type of shape, you can make it big, you can giant, and it will still work the same. Fun fact, the Spearfirst of Meta Knight is actually a 3D model, but it's not really 2D, it's kind of like an illusion of being a 2D Spearfirst, which is, yeah, trick your mind, didn't you? Now for the tornado attack that I made, it's a little more complex because it has layers and there's like lines that, Voronoi texture, there's so many things happening. So first, I had to make this shape and give it subdivision to make it smooth. And then go to the edit mode and grab the 1 by 1, make it twist it like 45 degrees. You have to go like 1 by 1 so that way the texture, have that twist effect. Next, add a displace modifier so it gives that bump and turn it into a global so that way it can make that effect whenever you move it. So, and you can change the size and everything. And the only way you can, give that texture into it is hover over to the texture icon so that way you can give that texture bumps into that model. In the shader, have a gradient and a Voronoi texture selected in UV, and then transparent effect and have a transparent effect on the edges. Then I made an animation by using color ramp, which is basically gives me more control so I can make that dissolving effect of the tornado. Here's a part of when this freaking lunatic's about to shove this guy towards mountains. Here's a speedline that's actually 2 models that's connected together, and both of them is actually formed like a cone. In the shader, there's actually 2 textures that's working together. The one with the long lines and the other one that's kind of like scatter effect. And of course, gradient color. The second one is basically the same thing as the first one, but this time I added the transparent effect. Here's a customized speedline that I created, which is kind of looks like an enemy if you think about it. So by doing that, just have a cylinder, delete the top and bottom, and then make the expanded, and in the modifier, add subdivision to make the line smoother. In the shading, add a gradient and a long Voronoi texture, and then I add a little math node, so how much brightness I put in this shader. You can notice the explosion is actually full-blown 3D, which is kind of requires a lot of techniques to pull this off. First, add a display to give bumps to the texture and subdivision to make it smooth. Then connect to the empty object so I can control the shapes. Then the ball shape is basically the same thing, you know, having more display, but this like 2 displays so I can have more control. So by using the empty object and make sure the texture is Voronoi texture to give the bumps. Then I use a light source so I can give brightness to the explosion to make an impact. Here's the part where the Meta Knight is about to charge his beam, which is kinda similar to Shadow one, when his gun's kinda exploded and there's like huge painting effect, and I gotta put in like every single frame on the video editor. And of course, the lucky Opportunes drawings. This time I'm trying to make the drawings, mill frames, to make it like a painting, like, you know, to fit the whole art style that I'm trying to go with. And yeah, this time it goes pretty well when it comes to rendering.
That's very good.
Just kidding, they crush it like always. Yeah, at this point, I don't know what to expect. I have to get used to it or else I'm gonna go crazy. Now for the Meta Knight ship, Harvard, it's actually his 2D drawing that I kinda drew myself. Originally, I asked a friend who's willing to draw a ship for me, which made these drawings, which I thought it looks pretty good. But he's not really best at making the background stuff, so he's kinda like, I give up. But hey, check out his Instagram page, he makes some pretty cool stuff that I think you could enjoy. So I decided to make my own ship by drawing in Opportunes, which I use 3D models to help me guide drawing the ship. This part is actually not in a 3D environment because I decided to make it first in a separate file and then later I put it in the video editor to give it some tweaks and tricks. First things first, for the star, give it a copy rotation and an object constraint and make it target to the camera so it can face towards to you. In the shader, give it a gradient effect, and then in the texture, give it like a long Voronoi texture combined with a hash node dots texture, and then give it a color ramp and a math node so I can change the brightness of the whole texture. Now in the video editor, you can notice that I grab like a different element with the Kirby renders and the special effects, so I can combine together to create a whole scene. And of course for the Kirby, I decided to change some colors in certain frames, so you can give that pretty cool effect. This part, when it has a reflection on a Meta Knight sword, actually involves some green screen effects in the video software. So first I have to go to Blender and duplicate a file and, you know, delete everything in the background except for the sword, of course. Then I combine together in the video editor by using chroma keys, you give it a green screen, and later I can render it to use a final render. Lastly, put 2 elements to it, give it a green screen effect, and one of them give it like color dodge to have that effect, and another one you give it a multiply so it can make the reflection a little more clearer. This part is kinda similar, but it's completely different. The Meta Knight model is completely different shader, and the background has so many things. It has a halftone texture, the gradient, and some transparency effect. I can mess around with that. It's freaking complicated. First, of course, I'm gonna make a green screen, give it a gradient, a texture, so I can pull this off. Then put that video over the Meta Knight face, give it a green screen effect, and then after the render, then put the green screen effect with the Meta Knight in it, so they give that little cool look into it. It's pretty cool. This part is actually my voice, but it's been multiplied so many times. Well, honestly, this animation could be my favorite video that I ever made because it has so many stuff that I basically just went crazy and experimented with different new things that I can manage to make this possible. Yeah, with that, I got a pretty cool result. Although it didn't blow up a crazy number, but at this point, what does it really matter? All I care is just make some pretty cool animation because I just feel like it. Got a problem with that, buddy? Oh wow. Yeah, I'm gonna have a great time cleaning this up. This video is pretty whack, all thanks to this one scene from the movie, which is
Man, why is Sim getting dancing?
beats me. I think that was his idea.
Oh, I see.
So this gives me a great idea, turn it into animation, but put in my own style and unique flavor to it, which led to become the most popular video I have so far. Looks like Gamer Move has some competition because oh my god! Jim Carrey's moves are so good that I brought a whole audience to watch them. Like, oh my god, his moves so smooth. So during the process of animating, I have so many ideas and references I want to add into this. So let's get to the tutorial. Now I want to go with the art style that is 3D but also 2D as usual, but this time I want to go with the Sonic Adventure 2 art style that has like 2D flashy feel to it, which I think fits the video that I'm going for. Fun fact, Eggman used to have that realistic looking mustache, but I decided to change it up and make it like a 2D stylized for a stylistic choice. And also I have to figure out a way how I can balance the proportion of Gerald's body, so I have to make sure that it's not too skinny but not too fat. Also, I animated Gerald clothes with the bone, which I have more control with it. In the shader, it's kinda similar to the painting shader, but this time it's a different texture, which one has a noise effect so it can combine with the other texture. So for some reason I kinda went overboard when it comes to halftone texture, which you can do with the rolling texture, just connect the distance to the color rim and bam, easy. And lastly, I add a rim light, which has 2 color rims that I can switch with a mix node by using keyframes. Also, the way I made the glasses is actually using the gradient and connect with the color ramp, and also tilted with using mapping. Here's a model of the boombox that comes with the different kind of models that kind of piece them put together, which made a big complete model that I'm trying to go for. And the little details for the speaker, I give the volume texture that is stretched very long. As long as the UV editing, you give that texture with the light map pack. The light that you see in the background is actually built in with the shader, not actually image. To set it up, I made a section that makes a horizontal line, the one that has a volume texture and the other one is a gradient. Same thing with the vertical line, but I kinda adjust it by giving a different direction. And connect it with the mix node and set it to lighten. In details, have a volume texture. And I have a custom radio gradient image, and for the last touch, add every single effect to make a final result. Now to have that light face of the camera, you need to have a copy rotation and target to the camera. For the follow-up, I created some kind of like a light ray texture, so by doing that, I gotta give it a volume texture and a gradient. Give it a transparent effect to the edges and some color ramp. The particle is actually made in shader, so have a volume texture with a dark tone color ramp and a radial gradient, and then with a color ramp. The Eggman logo may appear as an image, but it's actually made in geometry that I modeled myself, with the follow-up of having a light ray that comes from the logo. Now I made this crazy looking sun ray that I made for this shot, which gives that look. To set it up, give it a gradient, have a long volume texture, and have another volume texture but it's actually scattered around, and of course the halftone textures. I have these 2 mixed that comes with a different look, the one with the long lines and the one that has a radio effect, which only works because it has like a group of amount of mix node I have to work with. It's a cool little flashy fonts that I made it myself. So to set it up, have a dots halftone texture as usual, and then have a long volume texture with the gradient of course, and then have a color shader, follow up having a shadow on the side. And then with the color effect, I kinda use it with mapping, same thing with the transparent effect as long as you have a gradient. Now in the behind scenes, you can see that there's like a 3 big sphere that kinda act like a different world. The main stage, the posting scenes, and the one with a big Eggman. This part where it has a wacky geometry, I actually modeled it myself, which is kinda inspired by the Sonic media. Now this part where it has an impact frame, it's actually worked in a different file that I kinda use it to adjust it a different thing, so later on I can edit it out in the video editor. So in a different file, I kinda changed some things like colors, shapes, and stuff, basically. With one example is having a light source that looks harsh. Now I created a background that kinda uses this texture, with it has painting and a volume texture for details. On the edges, it has the volume texture and a gradient. Also for the Dance Revolution part, I basically did everything on the video editing. It just kinda works that way. So, after I uploaded a video, it was a huge success. Like I didn't expect to blow up this instantly. And then, in the comment section, it kinda looks like well, it's not the first time that happened. So the remix, I mean, kinda likely I might make this. Although the same way, I'm not too sure, but who knows, maybe I might think about making this remix. It's just so crazy how much attention that it got, which is, this is not even intentional, so I'm just surprised I even got this a lot of attention, and I appreciate it for all the support. Oh, so what the heck is going on TikTok? Imagine Steve Harvey as a Looney Tunes style, give it a PlayStation 1 graphics, and put a whole TV on his head. You get this guy. By the way, he got the same color pattern as the Eggman one.
I can't believe this!
This video is the first video that actually blew up my YouTube channel in the first place, which is, it kinda shocks me the first time it happens to me. And I always want to make a sequel out of it, so the new Deltarune chapter came out, and I saw this guy, I thought he'd say,
Perfect replacement.
Even though the character is actually simple, it has that PlayStation 1 graphics, I knew I wanted to go bigger and grander and compared to the first one to show my improvement over the past 4 years. Wait, 4 years? The hell is already 4 years? What? Anyways, I want to show you how to make a shader. Alright, to make that PlayStation 1 graphics, there's a little section that I created to make that effect. And it contains a pixelated texture that I created, which is something you just make in Microsoft Paint. It's not that hard. To make the image less blurry, pick the closest so it can make the texture look sharp. Then I created like a little 1080 resolution to make the pixels accurate to the screen by using scaling. And by the way, you don't have to use this kind of fancy, setup. You can use the scale number thing that way. Then I combine the X, Y with all those division math and connect it with the values so I can change the scale. And then connect it all the way to the mix node, so that way I can combine with the texture. Okay, that was a long freaking process. Anyway, so you get connected with the texture as usual and connected with the rim light, to give that nice looking shader into it. You know who I am. Then hover over to the percentage bar to 25%, then render image, and then you realize the image looks a little bit blurry. So to make the pixelated, go to the render properties, up onto the render, make it 1, so that way it makes it pixelated, low graphics. To render the whole thing, make sure it's PNG file format, then hit render animation, wait a little bit, and then you have a whole collection of pictures on your folder. Then I found this website that can transfer all those images into a GIF file format. Now drag those files on OpenTunes and then go to the toolbar so you can change the size to the same size of the resolution, so that way you can see the clear image of the entire animation. Now go to the output settings, hover to resemble balance and go to the closest pixel so you can see all the pixels, and then hit render. Wait a long time to freaking wait, and then boom! Here's the pixelated render.
What the heck? This is too complicated for me to process.
Well, if you think that's complicated, I do this process like every single scene, every single animation. Oh my god, you have no idea how much I have to do this. But it's worth it, so I don't care. Now I decide to model the employees: Sapper, Shadow Guy, and Pippins. But if you rub your eyes, you'll see total different thing. Have fun now, think about it. His head is supposed to be a dice, but in original, it looks like he has a flat face, so I just kinda went with a 2D dimensional face. And of course, the only way I can animate his face is using shape keys, where I make a different emotion. Kinda similar to Shadow Guy, but he's quite special one. And by the way, I give them 2 mouths. Yeah, looking at it is a straight up nightmare fuel. I managed to make a crowd that is quite similar to the original, and by doing that, we gotta go to geometry nodes. Yeah, this part kinda scares me the first time I use it. First, add a distribute point on the faces and connect value to density so you can control how much you want to add. Then add an instant of points and connect it to the object info. Since I created a different kind of crowd member, I decided to duplicate the same group of nodes into different layers, but each of them has their own different object info, so we can have more variation of the crowd. Now you can see the stars in the background that's kind of similar to the original game as well. So add the object info and connect that to the duplicate element, and then added the set position. Now added the math node so you can control the distance, and then add the combined X, Y, Z so you can put the vertical position. Now you can repeat the same process. Add a duplicate element, set position, and this time is horizontal. So same thing, just now in a different position. Now there we go. Now you have layers of stars. Now keep in mind, this one star that is used to duplicate different layer, you can control that star and move the position and change the rotations. Now the words that is right behind you is actually locked to the camera, so by doing that, you can have a copy transform and set the target to camera. Also, the way you expand the layer is by using the solidify modifier. And in the shader, you have a math node that changes the brightness and a mix node for the yellow effect. And each layer actually had their own material, so I have more control. Here's a little sun rays that kind of give it like a party feel. So in the shader, add a brick texture that creates lines, and then add a gradient and a Voronoi texture for details. Here's a big shader that I created whenever Tenna jump off the stage. So add a Voronoi texture that kind of acts like a main texture. Then here's a group of nodes that acts like a transparent. One is a long Voronoi texture and the other one is a gradient. Then add a gradient that goes bottom to the top, which connected to the math node to change the value. So all that stuff is connected to the color ramp. Now here's a little section that I created for the stars, and the mix node is connected all the way to the gradient effect. And finally, here's a part where I can change the gradient and it acts like a transparency effect. I'm going to show you how to make a star, so have a UV sphere and make sure the segment is 5 and the rings is 4. In edit mode, just delete the other half. Now select the 2 vertex that's between each other and click subdivide, so do that to the rest of the lines. Now select the vertex and the one in the middle and press J to connect the lines. Now you don't need those edges, so click dissolve edges to get rid of all of them. Now select all those 5 vertex and scale them to smaller, and there we go, you got a start. Good job. Also in the UV editing, select all those polygons and move that into the bottom so you can fit in all the gradient texture. One final thing, just move that polygon and there we go, you got a flash door. Now everything that you see is kinda similar to the last shader, but this time I added a math node so I can control the gradient. Now you see this part, this is basically exactly the same thing, just different color ramp and all that stuff.
Okay, look, I know these two are completely different, but I'm still learning how to use Blender, okay? Just please don't make fun of me.
Now here's a little cool thing. You can see how his model kinda grows out of it when the moment we leave the hat. Which is mean that in my view, I can see Tenna a small head and you'll never know. When you see the Tenna jump up the door, there's actually a background that's actually distance from the door. So you can get a little more space for Tenna. Now you can see the big train that flies around in the sky, which is very complicated to set up by the way. And also the whole cities that I made is actually inspired by the concept art that Toby Fox made. Which is, I don't understand why they didn't use it. Like, what the heck is wrong with you, Toby Fox? So I did it myself. By the way, the screen on the TV actually used image node that contains a video that I created on OpenTunes. Now you're gonna make the model for the railroads and put a modifier as array. And then you can amplify it to make a new model. In the UV editing, make sure you click project from view so you can mess around with the shader later on. Now add the path so you can later put the railroads on it, and then in the edit mode you can change the shape whatever you want. Select the railroads, add the curve modifier, and then select the path so now it can attach to the path. In the shader, the color blur is very small this time, and then it has a gradient connected to the math node, and now the railroads can go like Now I decided to make a western type of train, which is heavily inspired by this one minigame where it's kind of like a whack-a-mole but in a Red Dead Redemption style. So with the train model, have a follow path and select that target to the path, so now you can move the train within the path. And by using the evolution time, you can make the most deadliest roller coaster you can ever make. Now here's a part where it has a confetti explosion where it requires some particle system. First, I made 3 different confetti that's linked to the collection. Now make it render as collection and select the instant collection to the confetti. For the normal, you can set how much power you want to make it for the explosions. The number is basically, well, that, I mean, it's kind of obvious. And the depth is how much you want to hold back to the explosions. You can also change the scale and you can change the gravity as well. So with this one, you can make some crazy stuff like this. For the different color, I have the object info and set it to random, so whenever you duplicate the confetti, it will choose a random color based on the color ramp. Now I took a different approach on how I handle the drawings, and I actually turned to the pixels. So by doing that, add a new level, make sure it's pencil, and then you can actually draw pixels. And you have to closely line up the pixels of the resolution so it actually feels consistent. And yes, the eye on the Tenna is actually 2D drawn, which is heavily inspired by the Titan eyes, but the more I look at it, it kinda looks like an eye of Egypt. For the big scary Tenna, I used the Voronoi texture for the static, and I used a gradient effect for the red background, and a no channel screen as an image. I actually used Blender to make a boombox where I can use it as a reference to turn it into a 2D drawing. This part is pretty cool, and it's kind of similar to the Mennonite one with the reflection on the sword. So with the separated file, I turned it to a green screen color, and I used the light to change the value of the whole thing. Now you can use the chroma key to get rid of the blue color. After the render, now you can chroma key the green color. I duplicate the second video where I can use it to change the color to give that a cool little special effect. Now, as for the remix, well, I haven't really made up my mind if I want to make a remix or not, especially when I have other project that I have to work on. So I'm just not sure or even have an urge to even make a remix. But time will tell, who knows. Hope you guys doesn't throw forks and fire on me, please. And that's the end of the video! Yeah, finally! Well, we reached the end of the tutorial after showing all my secrets, which took me absurdly long to edit, holy crap. So, I got a few thoughts about the whole thing. Firstly, I want to say thank you for all the support and appreciating my work, especially since I didn't think I would be in this position in the first place. It's crazy how much I managed to attract this one-up audience since I was struggling to push my content to a lot of people back then. And I received so many great comments from my videos, which is very motivating when I read all of them. And I wanted to give a shout out to Newgrounds for supporting my journey as well. The community is full of pretty cool people, you know, check out that website. Ever since my videos started gaining popularity, I always thought about wanting to be diverse with my content and create a variety of works that I always wanted to make, especially when I want to tackle a different franchise like these, keeping my channel much more fresh.
And who knows, maybe I'll make some original content, you never know.
This also means that I wanted to stay away from making Undertale and Deltarune content, even if that's what made my channel pop out in the first place. Besides, I've probably made like 5 Undertale or Deltarune videos on my channel. Oh my god, that's a freaking overkill compared to my other videos. So don't expect any new Undertale or Deltarune content from me for a good while, and expect some variety from now on. And also, I want to apologize for taking months to upload a single video. Just videos like these just takes a long time to make, to the point where it just becomes exhausting and overwhelming for me to even keep up my promise of uploading more often. And I tend to jump different kind of video projects, but what it really did is distract me from one project that I'm supposed to be focused on, making it longer to even upload one single video. So I really need to keep my workflow balanced without any distraction, especially social media. Sometimes that can be an endless trap. And also, I want to say this. I know it's very hard to get your content out there to the public because I was there before. And I know it's very rough out there for many people, especially the whole AI nonsense that's going around, which is basically a definition of a poop from a butt. So for all the aspiring people who want to reach their goals, honestly, just keep going. We're all gonna have our wins and losses, but that didn't stop me from keep pushing, so it shouldn't stop you. Remember, we're in this together, and for the other people who thinks there's no point in creating, there will always be people who crave for quality content and just want to find something valuable and memorable. So yeah, just raise your standards, guys. So yeah, that's about it. I'm thinking of making more videos about me just talking some random topics. Don't worry, the animation ain't going anywhere. I'm also gonna stream on Twitch where I just goof around and do some activities, which is a good way to interact with my fans.
Yeah, look at me, I am very fancy. I'm not dead, I'm alive and fancy.
And lastly, I'll open a Patreon for anybody who wants to donate me, just to show their support. There will be bonus content like extra behind scenes, some preview of my upcoming videos, and be credited in every last minute video. Just make sure you don't go broke. Managing your money is top priority. Follow my Twitter and Blue Sky when I post some random goofy things, and TikTok since there's have been people who re-upload my stuff without my permission. So yep, follow my legit ones.
And new girls too.
So yeah, that's all. So I'll see you next.
Hey, Matt, before you end the video, I found this drawing from the dumpster.
Wait, what are you, a freaking homeless man?
What?
What?
What did you just call me?
Another. What was it a drawing?
Yes, take a look.
Alright, let me see.